Ooh, that was nice, Luke.
Come on.
Come on, y'all. Listen, so with that being said, please help me welcome Chasity Alford and Dr. Shaun Powell.
Where all my niggas?
Have a good time in here.
Yes.
How y'all feeling, ladies?
Amazing.
Oh, y'all said it in unison. Y'all better come on. Listen, so we have a lot of topics to talk about, so we're just going to go ahead and, like we say, dive in.
Let's do it.
It's a deep dive. The first topic is childhood trauma. Ooh, let's talk about that. So how has your childhood affected your adult life? What specific experiences have had the most profound impact on you? Let's start with my right.
So I would have to say childhood trauma is something that we really don't recognize at a young age, but it filters over into our adulthood life. Coming from a Black community, we've experienced a different way of being upbringing. And for me, it was a lot of verbal abuse, a lot of physical abuse, and it filtered over into the adulthood. And it was something that I had to take a step back and recognize that I need help.
Wow.
And in our community, mental health is something that is not
Frowned
really talked
upon,
upon.
right?
It's not talked about a lot.
Emotional, damn it.
Yes, but it is so important and it's vital that we embrace mental health and we go see a therapist and we find a therapist that understands our needs. So I will tell anyone that has suffered from any type of childhood trauma or abuse, seek therapy. You have to. It is necessary.
It's so true. I agree with you. Dr. Shaun,
Yes.
what do we do?
Well, I was taught you pray about it. You don't go to therapy.
Right. We
Yes.
were all right.
Yes,
Most
so
Black
we're-
families, we're going to pray about it and then
That's
Jesus
it.
going to handle it all.
Yep, that's
but he
it.
actually equipped people with knowledge to help us with different tools for mental challenges.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's why I became, my doctorate is in Christian counseling and biblical studies, to be able to help my family who went through all of the childhood trauma, like verbal abuse and things like that. So.
Have you yourself had any specific experience?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Right?
It's the verbal abuse, and just to go a little bit in deep, the mother-daughter relationship, living up to certain expectations.
Yes.
Things like that, what they want you to become.
Yes.
So
Y'all make me want to get on the couch now. I need to talk to a therapist because, our parents all want us to become something, right?
Right.
We get that. Oh, who didn't get verbal abuse? Raise your hand if you didn't get no verbal abuse as a child. You didn't? It's one person in the audience. You, the Holy Grail. So the majority of us do experience that. I know I did as well. So as far as childhood trauma, you say that, well, I don't have the scars, I don't have wounds, but the physical side of it and the verbal side of it goes with you throughout your entire life, right?
Absolutely, because they say that sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt. Words still carry, because I can still sometimes deal with hearing the things you're not good enough, so the words do carry.
Yes, they do. Ooh. So the next topic we're going to talk about, ladies, is called guilt and shame. So what are some of the things you feel guilty or ashamed about in your life? And how has guilt and shame affected your relationships, both with yourself and with others?
I would have to say becoming an entrepreneur, really, really striving and going for my goals has caused friction and tension and distance with a lot of family and friends. When we get into the world of entrepreneurship, the first thing we think our family and friends are going to be our biggest supporters.
Yes, they're going to be supportive. Yes, and then you turn around and it's like, she thinks she everything.
And that's
you better than everybody else. It's like, no, I'm just trying to, make it happen.
And I think when we walk into the journey, when we walk the journey of entrepreneurship, that is our mental. our goal at the end of the day is to pull our family with us, because our closest friend, our families, we're thinking is our biggest supporter. And ultimately we get that type of reaction, which causes the distance. So now you find yourself questioning, what did I do? Did I make the right decision? Why are they not supporting me? And ultimately, I've had to come to the realization that everyone does not grow with you. And so that guilt has made me charge even harder, because my biggest supporters have come from total strangers who have now turned into my family. So, you know, that guilt that I once have, I have no more, because this is my gift from God. And, you know, I can't feel bad about that.
That's beautiful. They say we can choose our friends, but we can't choose our family.
Absolutely.
And then we got to be careful with that too, right?
Exactly.
It's true.
That's beautiful though. Entrepreneurship, it's very difficult and everybody cannot go with you. I have a girlfriend that calls it scaffolding. It's like as you are growing and as you're building something, the scaffolds have to come off, right? And so sometimes when you're growing, everybody can't grow up with you. And at some point, some floor, they fall out. Not because you don't love them anymore, but just they can't go to that next level and they have to go.
This is true.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Doctor, please shed some light.
It's the same. It's so ironic we have so much in common.
And y'all both wore green. What's up, ladies?
It's the entrepreneurship.
Yes.
It's like, you know, going after your dreams, you know, and not having that support and thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to take, you know, Bobby, John, we're all going to do this together. My family going to work for me. We're going to just run this whole world. But then they don't support it. Or, you know, there's like, you're better than us. You know, oh, you got all this money, which we don't. You know, so it's just like
you hear it all, don't you?
Yeah, that guilt, you know, it carried, you know, with me.
It's deep.
Yeah,
I feel
it's really deep. You know? So what I've learned that you have to push through that. I
was gonna say,
like,
so
you know,
how do
you're
you-
gonna be right there. That's fine. But I still have to go.
You got to keep moving.
You know, because if I keep hitting the ceiling, eventually it's gonna wear me down, and I'm just gonna lay there.
Or you're just
I gotta-
pulling
or I
dead
gotta-
weight too.
Right, I gotta
right?
push through it. You know, so that's what, you know, I'm doing. I decided to do for myself.
Wow.
You know.
And it's a commitment too.
Right.
That can be kind of difficult because you do love and gather these people as you're moving along the way, right?
Indeed.
Right.
Indeed.
So, self-worth. That's a big topic. Everyone is like, you know, that's like the new for today. How do you define your self-worth and how do you deal with feelings of inadequacy or low self-esteem?
So I started the Maven Factor, which is a plus-size boutique for women. I solely focused on the industry for curvy women sizes 14 to 30. Being a plus-size woman, a lot of times we deal with self-confidence issues, low self-esteem, because society has this picture, if you're not a size 2, if you're not a size 4, then technically speaking, you don't matter, you're unhealthy, you're overweight, and you just don't fit the narrative. And so we too tend to beat ourselves up a lot regarding what society has set as a limitation. But a lot of times what we have to do is take ownership of our self-worth. It's critical to know that, number one, you are good. You are good enough, and you have to value and appreciate. And when you walk into that level of confidence that no one can take away from you, you'll know that size just is another number.
Correct.
And that's it.
And you know what? I want to add a little bit to that too, because you talk about, I have sisters and they're like thick and curvy, but you have other people who are small. I have really friends who are smaller and they have the same issues. It's just on the other side. It's like, I don't like looking like this. You people who go through anorexia, bulimia, you know, you have all kind of issues. So once you realize that it's not just you, it might be a different narrative in somebody else's life, but it's the same result.
Yes,
right?
it really is.
Yeah.
Yes, hello and welcome back to the Sisaundra Show. I am so excited to have my two guests here. We've been talking about different topics that are very deep. We've talked about, come on ladies.
Self-worth.
Self-love, self-worth,
Trauma.
and y'all know what we're going to talk about now?
Let's get into it.
Loss and grief. So what are some significant losses you've experienced in your life and how have you dealt with the associated grief? Let's start with you, Doctor.
I'm still dealing with it. I can go back from my first loss of my fiance in 2006. Then my sister passed in 2007. Then my stepdad passed in 2008.
Oh my goodness.
So, and I had to take on the responsibility of taking care of their arrangements. Then my mom, you know, she passed away in 2013.
Oh my goodness.
And
I'm
just
so
recently,
sorry.
then my sister, my oldest sister, passed away right after her. So then my nephew, this was a trauma. It was just like so traumatic. Like they died of natural causes and things like that. But my nephew last month was murdered.
No, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
He was murdered, and he was a twin. And it's just like, you know, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
And I'm their only aunt that's left. You know, so it's like I have 12 nieces and nephews, and I'm the only aunt because they lost their mom. You know, their grandma is not here. And so it's just like, that's one of the reasons why I became a therapist, so I can also deal with what I'm dealing with and to help them through it.
Yes.
So it takes time.
Yes.
You know, and I still deal with it, you know, every day.
Every
You
day.
know, every day.
And it's been almost 14, 15 years.
Yes, from the first one, you know, from the first one. I used to walk around with their ashes.
Wow.
And I didn't know what I was going through at that time until one day I was at work and I heard my mom's name. Someone had the same name and I just broke down. And then that's when I knew I needed therapy.
Yes.
You know, I needed to deal with what I was dealing with.
Yes.
You know, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Loss and grief, Chasity.
When you think of loss and grief, you think they've passed, you know, they've gone on, and you try to pick up the pieces to move on. The unfortunate part is you deal with that loss every single day.
Yes.
You grieve at different times. There are things that can easily trigger.
Yes.
And the best way that I've learned to cope, because you never get past the loss.
No.
As a mother of three, you know, my parents are gone. My mother, my father, and my stepfather, who was instrumental in raising me. Sometimes I wonder, who can I turn to for that guidance?
Yes.
You know, when I have the question of parenting and you just don't know. And you think and you find yourself wondering, I wonder what my mom would say, or wonder what my mom would do.
Yes.
Grief is such a tough topic because people don't recognize or even realize that you never heal. You never get past that loss. You find ways to deal with it. I still talk to my parents, you know, as if they're present. And a lot of times I stop myself and just say, I know you hear me. It's tough to deal with grief, and you don't really know how to.
No.
You find coping ways and things to help you maneuver and move on in life. But I always remind myself, I know my parents are super proud of me, and I know that they're looking down, and that's what keeps
keep telling
me going.
yourself,
You have
yes.
to keep telling yourself that, because ultimately there's nothing that will ever fill the void of losing someone in such a traumatic way.
It's so true. Wow.
Tough.
It is very tough. So I've lost both of my parents as well. And when it really dawned on me is someone was writing on social media to me, and they were like, welcome to the orphan club. And I was like, oh my God, an adult orphan. I never thought about that in my life. So to be in that circle, to think about your parents, to miss them, to long for them, to constantly wonder what they would do, or hearing their voices in your head. Now, the crazy thing for me too is that my mom was a singer, and my mom could sing. And I didn't realize how much I sound like my mother until she passed away. And then I couldn't sing for almost a whole year. Like, people kept asking, are you gonna sing? Are you gonna? And I was like, no, because every time I opened my mouth, I would start crying because I could hear my mother's voice.
Yes.
And it's only now that I can accept the sound of her voice inside of me. So I understand that. And you never get rid of that.
Never.
You never. And sometimes I don't want to hear it. It's just like, but if I don't want to hear it, then I'm never going to sing again. So you have to choose what you're going to do. So I will sing, but I sing now with just, you're still a part of me when I hear my voice, because it's my mother's too. Amazing. So let's talk about addiction and recovery, y'all. Have you or someone close to you ever struggled with addiction? How has that experience impacted your life?
My father was addicted to heroin growing up. We never knew the source of the violent reactions, never understood the violent outbursts, and he was extremely physically abusive, and we just never knew. You see, when you deal with a person that is addicted to just a powerful drug, they find ways that you could never imagine
To deceive you.
But they also find ways to put this united front that I'm okay, but in reality, they're not. So being addicted to heroin, he's gone to rehabilitation numerous times. Then he became addicted to methadone.
Oh my goodness.
Ultimately, my father committed suicide by the use of heroin.
I'm so sorry.
It's not something that you ever get over. It's not something you ever understand. And you find yourself asking questions. Why? How did this happen? What could I have done? And it's a demon. It is a battle that they're fighting.
Yes.
And ultimately that demon won. And so I find myself advocating more and more about the use of drugs. And it's something that is vital and critical in our community that we discuss, not only with adults, but with children.
Yes.
Because, you know, you walk out today and society makes everything front and center for a child to have and to obtain. And so if we don't teach our children at a young age the importance of staying away from drugs and why they have to stay away. Sometimes we have to get just right down to it and say, this is what could happen to you. And you don't recognize it until it hits home. And for me, I can tell you that it hit home. And I'm to the point where I'm scared about taking a pill. And so because that addiction runs deep. It runs deep. So education is important. Education is vital when it comes to the use of drugs. And addiction is just something that can happen to anyone. If you're not educated enough about drug use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doctor.
Yeah.
What you got to say about that?
I'm going to just say I can relate. You know, I grew up in a alcoholic home, an abusive home, and to experience that, you know, my stepdad was in my life since I was 2 because my dad passed away, and to see the drinking, you know, the drugs, the fighting, which allowed me to just go deep into my writing. That's how I became, you know, a playwright and writing movies, because I would go to a different world and write about it.
Just
you
to
know,
escape
escape all of that, you know, to be able to see it, you know, the smell of the alcohol, you know, it's okay for us to drink at 4 or 5 or 7 years old, you know.
What?
I mean, it's just like, it was just, like, I look back on it now and was like, girl, how did you survive that?
Yes.
You know, it was just God,
I was
you
gonna
know.
say
I was like, it was
nobody.
just God. And just at that time, with going in my room and writing, you know, I would go to Matthew, not knowing at 10 years old what I'm reading the Bible, Matthew, but I understand all of it now. But to be able to see, you know, not only my stepdad, but to see, you know, siblings, you know, to see uncles, and then everybody around me and taking alcohol, you know, and not me.
Wow.
You know, so it's just like
Having to deal with that.
having to deal with that as a kid, you know,
Very young kid.
a young kid, and the trauma and all the stuff that comes along with it.
So talk
But, you
about
know,
being an overcomer, ladies. You both, my goodness, the triumphs
When you
over the
look
trials.
back, you look back at what could happen, and you say to yourself, God, I just need you to guide me.
Yes.
Use me as a vessel so this does not become me. We are generational curse breakers, is how I look
love
at
that.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
And we are the ones to set the stage for those to come behind us. Being a sibling to witnessing the physical abuse, the drug use, you know that, okay, I know what drugs can do, but does my siblings know? You know, now I'm a mother, I'm a parent, so this is what happened to my father. I now have to educate my children of what could happen to them. And when we don't share these stories, the cycle repeats
It repeats itself for sure. Now, I will tell you my story. I grew up around no drugs. I grew up around no alcohol. When I left my parents' house at 18, that was the first time I ever met an addict that was directly in my life, and I did not know how to handle it.
Wow.
I'd never seen anyone addicted to anything because we were so sheltered in the church, right? So to find someone that you really care about and then discover that they're addicted to something that you don't even know anything about, it's like I'm trying to school myself about drugs and alcohol so that I can help somebody I love. And then I found out that I can't help you. You can only help yourself.
Exactly. Yeah,
That is
You
the
can
key.
only save yourself. You can lead them to the water, they say,
Yes.
but you can't make them drink.
right.
it.
That's
Listen, y'all, it's been so great talking to both of you ladies. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to say goodbye. Yes! Hello, everyone. If you are at work, at home, y'all drop everything and tune in because it's time for the Sisaundra Show!
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just kidding. Don't y'all get fired. Don't drop everything at work. Listen, speaking of fired, y'all